you need to be shipping something all the time. It doesn't matter if it's small, if it's big, whatever, just keep shipping. Then go and check how people are using that thing that you shipped. And if nobody is using it, well, you need to ship something else.
Quick follow-up question. What if my company is only releasing once a quarter?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Product and Cake. Today, as always, as you can imagine what my next words are gonna be, we are in the virtual recording studio with my amazing co-host, Paul. How you doing, Paul?
Thank you, Gonche, for the introduction that was so surprising and
so innovative.
Innovative and new. But what is actually new is our awesome guest today, because here with us is Mariano from Vercel. Hi, Mariano. How are you?
Hey, folks. I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's funny because we are in a virtual room, but we are all in the same city, so we can complain about the weather at the same time. That's great for the introduction.
And luckily, we did that already in our pre-talk, so you don't need to listen to us complaining about the weather. But I have another introduction question for you both.
Yeah.
And my question today for check-in is, Mariano, what helps get you in the flow?
Usually, it's just getting off the computer, walk a bit, just play some music, and then it's like, okay, I disconnect a bit, I have a broader vision of what I'm doing, and then I go into it again with more strength, you know?
Thanks for sharing. What about you, Gonche?
If I want to focus on a topic, I need to have headphones on, even if nothing is playing, but and not earphones, not something in my ear. I need something to hold my whole head. So I need proper headphones. And I also would prefer wear glasses. When I need to really focus, I wear glasses. Make sure my hair is tied up. It's up. It's not in the... So my head needs to be basically covered. That's the start of it. And then I have a playlist in Spotify that is my focus playlist. And I listen to that, and it's just brings me into the flow.
Nice. That's also a ritual, you know, like when tennis players are about to serve. You start like, okay, I touch 3 times here, I cover, I go there, back. Nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
I would like
exactly.
to have something as interesting to say, but mine was boring. Sorry.
Everyone is different. All
How
good.
about you, Paul? What do you do?
So for me, I'm recently experimenting a lot with binaural beats. You know, that sound files that have different wavelengths on left and right ear. And then they say it put your brain into movement when you hear that. And it's like a white noise sound a little bit. If you search for binaural beats on YouTube, you find a lot of stuff. And that works for me actually super good, combined with my timer. This is for me at the moment the best tool. 35 minutes, go, and whenever my brain tries to slip, then I look at the timer and I realize, okay, just 20 minutes, focus. Today, we have a similar time span ahead, a little bit longer. That's nice because, Mariano, you are basically working at one of the coolest companies at all, from my perspective, because you are staff product manager at Vercel. And Vercel is maybe the hottest platform infrastructure provider at the moment. Would you agree to that, or how do you describe Vercel?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what we are doing nowadays is we are what I always like to think of Vercel is something that enables you to build software and to build your ideas. It's about getting from idea to creation as fast as possible and focusing on your problems, not focusing on stuff like, I don't know, how do I make my build happen? How do I start my container? You don't have to worry about that. Just focus on your idea, focus on your problem, bring it to life. And I feel like that philosophy is what has been guiding Vercel through time and what is making it not just be an infrastructure provider, but also provide other stuff. Like, for example, now with V0, if you think about it, it goes under the same principle. It's about being able to bring your idea to creation, worrying about less of the stuff around.
Yeah, and this philosophy is something I really felt when using the product. I really love this product experiences when I'm thinking like, oh, damn it, I need to achieve this and that. And then there comes a pop-up or a button and they're saying, hey, you try to do this, then click here and we do it for you automatically. And it's like, wow, nice. It's so straightforward. Fantastic.
Yeah, for me, it's always like the happy path has to feel like magic. It has to just not annoy you. It has to be super smooth, and it has to give you, all of the chances to fine tune, to have the flexibility of changing stuff, but only if you want to dig deeper. Otherwise, you should feel like there is nothing there. Like your infrastructure or your stuff is supporting you has to not be annoying you. You have to not be thinking about it.
All right. And Mariano, for those who don't know you and what you do, how can you explain your job? What do you do as a staff product manager?
that that's a good question. I do a lot of stuff, and my answer will change depending on what week are we at. Because, for example, right now we are preparing for Vercel Ship. It's a conference that we have on June 25th, and I am focusing a lot on that and on making everything get ready for that. But I would say that if I had to describe my job, it's about making my teams be the most impactful on the customer's life. It might sound a bit abstract, but I feel like that's what I end up doing. I end up like helping my engineering teams, getting them bringing the voice of the customer, bringing also like the business factors, help them to have the most impact that they can at this time on the customer's life. So the customer's life is easier and everyone is happy. So that includes a lot of glue, like some days I'm working closer to designing. Some days I'm working closer to engineering. It really depends on what jobs needs to be done on a weekly basis. But at the end, it's all about the same goal.
Yeah, this is really beautiful because that is also somehow bringing this magical approach you referred to before. So this feeling of, hey, everything is fitting together and is not stopping me from realizing or from solving my current issue. So what would you say? Where's this magic coming from? Are you also very much in contact with the customers, or are you more relying on tracking data and infrastructure monitoring to see if they successfully finished their work?
You need both. Like I am personally involved a lot with customers. Like I try to keep myself at least 3 or 4 customer calls on a week. And there is something magic about something I like to do with customers is just look at them while they are using my product. Sometimes I would say, hey, can I just jump an hour to be just a shadow for you and see how you use Vercel, how your day-to-day goes? Like, what are the things that you care? How do you move across different websites? How do you move across different, for example, I am in CI/CD. I'm interested to know how do Vercel fit into their whole CI/CD platform and how do they move from one provider to, I don't know, some observability provider somewhere else? How do they connect everything and how do they navigate all of it? So I like to do 2 kinds of calls. The first one is just, talking, pretty open, validating stuff sometimes. And the other one is, hey, I will just be here, a fly in the wall, because you learn so much stuff by just looking at people using your product. You need to have those exposure hours if you want to be able to iterate, efficiently on your product.
Beautiful. I think that is very much underestimated. And sometimes people tend to think, I talked to 10 customers already. I know what they will do. And I have also my experiences and my thoughts on how to move forward. Can you quantify a bit Vercel and your team? With how many people are you working and how many of them are in product and tech?
Yeah, we have over 600 employees. We are like working all around the US, Europe. So we have like multiple hubs. Now, recently we opened the Berlin office. That was great. It was like a big milestone after like being working in Germany for a while. It's like nice to have the office. We are like really remote friendly, but yeah, we are 600 employees in total. And I don't remember exactly the numbers for each of the areas. Sorry.
And how many people are working in your team or directly with you?
I think it's hard to quantify because I take care of everything related to CI/CD and compute. So I am touching basically everyone or half of the company. Directly, I always have probably like 10, 20 people that I work more closely with. But then they also have people working directly to them. And it's like, it becomes like a spider net.
And how did you end up here? How come you're a product manager? How come at this company?
Okay, a little bit of a story time. I'm originally from Argentina. I studied computer science over there. I finished my degree and I was like, hey, what do I want to do? I was trying to get into compilers. It was really, not the best entry point for engineering at the moment for a junior engineer. So I started playing in the open source. I started playing at that moment with Next.js. It was Next.js 3. I started adding examples to, hey, how do you connect Next.js with the style components? I was like really into CSS in JS as everyone in 2017. I started like doing that kind of stuff. From there, I got contacted by a company in Germany who were looking for Next.js developers, which was not something that there were a lot at the moment. We were like just in Next.js 3. And they were like, do you want to move to Germany and help us move this website from Meteor.js to Next.js? And I was like, why not? I had nothing to do. Like, yeah, I was young and an opportunity to move. Let's go. I moved to Germany. I started working there until one day they were like, we need a product manager. Like we just needed for the organization to make sense. And you are the engineer who is kind of taking care of what the product manager would traditionally take care of. Do you want to try it? I said, yes. Fast forward 5, 6 years and here we are. But it's fun because it's like a full cycle. I started by adding stuff to Next.js and now I am like, okay, on Vercel, so it's great.
Are you still coding from time to time or?
Yeah. Now I think I'm more vibe coding than coding, but I'm still in contact with code. I consider myself like quite a technical person. That's why I'm also working on this more dev tools and infrastructure side of the world. But yeah, I keep myself entertained and I keep using all of the products that I am working at, right? Like for example, right now we are working on some new primitives, on some stuff that I need to try it. I need to validate it by myself.
And if your role disappeared tomorrow, not necessarily that you disappear, but the whole role, the company decides that, well, we don't need this role, this headcount anymore. What would break first? What would be the first issues that pop up?
Yeah, I mean, I like that you said that about the role and not about me, because if it was me, I think the first thing to break is some of my engineers' heart because we have such a good relationship. But if we are talking about the role itself, I think it's mostly the cohesion and having a unified vision across like a broader scope. Something that I feel that product management brings to a company is that cohesion and that vision. I'm a huge believer that product managers have to have broad scope and have to have really a lot of freedom and wide impact areas so they can keep the cohesion of the product across many teams. I'm not a huge fan of one product manager per engineering team. I am more of a fan of one product manager per, we can call it product area, domain area, however we want to call it, but like one level more of abstraction there.
That is very interesting because it would put a lot of decisions and a lot of responsibility into the engineers, right? When you distribute the maybe smaller decisions on how to do a feature exactly.
Yeah, but I think that's fine. Like they are able to take decisions, right? And at the end of the day, what I'm accountable for is for giving them the context to make the right decision. What I'm accountable for is to make them work on the right thing and make the right decisions by providing them with a framework, a way to think, and how to make those decisions. Like, for example, we added like a couple of months ago. No, it was actually more than a year ago. Oof, time flies. Like something so you can deploy from the dashboard using a Git reference. And there are like small decisions that you need to make. Like, for example, what do you use? Do you use SHA or do you use a Git ref to make the reference? And those kind of decisions, I feel like an engineer can make by themselves. You don't need to be over, micromanaging the product at that point. You should be able to give them enough context on what the problem is, enough context on what are you trying to solve and what's the impact that you are expecting to have, so they can make those decisions without you being there. You're more like in the broader spectrum of defining the problems.
I really love that approach. I also totally agree that this can accelerate the product at all, because most of the time engineers have also a different perspective and different knowledge next to the pure product management, right? And maybe the one way is much faster than the other. On the other hand, we may all know also people, when you give them the freedom, they say, okay, nice, I will build that dashboard. And then they came up with a new layout component framework because they thought, this one button is not looking that good or it's not rendering that fast. So I built this whole framework again because I can do it. And it was so nice to do it. So how do you balance that nobody is falling into any given technology trap when they have so much freedom?
Yeah, I think like that's solved in part by the culture of the company. Like at Vercel, something that we have is that you can just ship things. That's something that is really core to us. It's part of our values. And then another one is ITG, that is iterate to greatness. So it's really in everyone's like back of their heads of, hey, I need to bring something to the customers, like something that is usable. It doesn't mean that we ship defective stuff. It's like it needs to be good, but then I can iterate on top of that. And I feel like that mentality ends up getting you out from those traps. Again, engineers, luckily, or at least engineers I work with, they are like really product focused. A lot of them have been building their own products in the past. So there is like this synergy of they also want to have the product in hands of the customers. We are all constantly trying to get the stuff into customers and maximize those exposure hours that we were talking about. Our engineers also want to see people using their products. Like, for example, now we shipped Fluid Compute recently, and every time there is someone taking a screenshot, publishing on X, the Everything app, anything about Fluid Compute, all the team gets happy about it. You have people using your product and giving feedback, and feedback is really, really powerful. It's like the best gift you can ask is use my product and give me feedback. I will take it. I don't care what the feedback is. I mean, a bit you care, but you have to be able to filter that feedback.
Yeah, beautiful. So what's a misconception people have about what you do?
I will say that the biggest misconception is that I live on meetings, because I live on meetings, but then I have to also do other stuff while I'm not in meetings. So it's like you have to manage that, how you spend your time. And I feel like the other big lie is a word manager in product manager, because I don't manage anyone. I'm an IC. Sometimes people get confused with that. It's like I'm not managing the engineers. I am just working with them side by side and trying to get the best out of the product and the best out of our time too.
I fully agree there that the manager in the word product manager is misleading, but also at the same time, it showcases the, I would say, importance of the role. And it showcases that even though you do not have people manager responsibilities, you do require leadership skills to be able to fulfill your role successfully. And on top of that, you have decision-making power for a lot of topics. And even though you're not a people manager, you're a manager of, you have a lot of responsibility. So as much as I think it is misleading, I don't think it's necessarily bad. But yeah, my mindset to be honest, shifts a lot about it. Sometimes I'm like, this is bad. This is a bit different name. Sometimes I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just run with it. It's like, okay, it's what the role is called. To me, at the end of the day, it's a lot of jobs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do it, and that's it.
Yeah,
But as you
fair.
said, it's a lot about leadership and influence at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And what's the biggest challenge you're tackling right now?
Biggest challenge, I feel like, as per usual, the challenge changes on a week to week basis. As we were talking before, right now I'm really focused on finishing some particular projects, some particular products I want to wrap up. That's right now the biggest challenge I have. If we go like broader into career wise, I feel like once you start getting into more of these senior roles, I feel like a challenge is how to make a framework on what I'm doing to be able to enable other people to have the same output without me having to be leading that initiative, if that makes sense. I feel like that's something very important. That's where I'm personally right now start to iterating on. How do I enable other junior product managers, for example, to take the same framework and apply it themselves? I know that product management changes from company to company and even from product manager to product manager, but I like to think that I'm effective on what I'm doing. So a lot of time thinking on, hey, how can I productize my way to develop products within the company for other product managers too?
Yeah, it's definitely true that it differs from company to company, but it sounds especially interesting in your case when you can have your product vision and your approach to it combined with this healthy company culture. That sounds very interesting. And it is also the beautiful segue to my next question, because when we are talking about productizing things nowadays and junior product managers, wouldn't you would you say that we need junior product managers at all, or would you put your framework into the next large language model and accelerate your input through AI?
That that's a good question. I feel like at the end we need to keep forming people. I feel like you don't end up having, you know, like a school of product management nowadays. I feel like you end up on product management, like most people I know end up on product management because they were at the right time in the right place. It was not something like they were thinking about doing since they were in high school or something like that. I feel like when we were in high school, product management as a discipline was not really even a thing. But I feel like we need to keep like shaping people into taste, because at the end of the day, a lot is about taste and a lot is about exposure hours and a lot is about how to make all of this stuff happen, in a coherent and cohesive way. So I don't think that we are at the point of an LLM solving it. I feel like we are at the point of an LLM accelerating it. Like stuff like, for example, B0 helps a lot into verticalizing your employees. Like, for example, nowadays, I have changed a lot on how I work. I am not writing PRDs anymore. I am usually just shipping a prototype. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And I'm sending you a URL and you will go. And I have prompted like one-to-one replica of the dashboard. And I have added some spice on it. And be like, hey, I think about this feature. It should work something like this. Or I am going to Cursor and I am invoking an API. And I'm like, hey, what do you think about something that you will interact in this way with? So I feel like AI is accelerating us rather than coming for us, if that makes sense.
At Vercel, most likely you have a lot of direct access to very interesting tools like V0. We all needed to wait a little bit longer, most likely, until we are allowed to play with it. What's, from your perspective, an overrated versus an underrated way AI is used in product management?
Yeah, I think the overrated way is basically rewriting. Like there is, this meme of someone telling ChatGPT, write me an email based on these bullet points so you can make it sound formal, blah, 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 blah. And the person who received it pasting that and saying to ChatGPT, can you summarize this into 2 bullet points? I feel like there is a lot of overrated stuff there. Like, I'm not going to any of these LLMs to, I don't know, expand some thoughts. I think like if we can keep it short, it's better. Like, I don't want you to feel a 1-pager based on 3 bullets. I want to move from a 1-pager to a prototype that I can use. And I feel like that's the underrated part, is how you can quickly create prototypes, how you can quickly connect the stuff together and realize if something makes or doesn't make sense. Like, you can really easily find if an experience will be nice or not. We're recently having an issue we're discussing on, hey, should this be something that I have a search, or should it be something that I have like a long list and checkboxes? Like, how should this UI work? And the thing that was beautiful was that we were like, okay, let me share my screen. I will just B0 it and we can see how it feels. That cuts a lot of time. That cuts a lot through the iteration. You iterate faster.
Do you think it's just a little time ahead that it's not a prototype anymore, but that you are pulling out the dashboard in V0 and saying, hey, implement this and that feature, and skipping the whole engineering part?
Hopefully. I think like we will still need engineering. Like, I feel like we are moving now into a point where one of the most valuable things on engineers is engineers who are good at code reviewing. Because now, for example, something that is pretty common is you ask an agent to perform a task and it will open a PR on your code base, but you still need to go review it and you need to quickly be able to iterate on, hey, will it have any side effects? If it will have any side effect, how do I describe it so it fixes itself or whatever? So I feel like right now we are moving into this part where like the most effective engineers are the ones who are good at doing code reviews, the ones who are good at system thinking, the ones who are good at writing tests. That, to be honest, I think like those were like the best engineers also previously, but now they shine more and more because you have these agents doing these other tasks.
That is really interesting. It is a little bit hard for me to now shift to the next question because I want to completely change the topic, but I wanted to get a little bit more towards you and what you've learned so far in your career. So I want to formulate the question like, what's one thing you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
I think that is about exposure hours. I have been saying exposure hours a lot lately. And it's because I feel like at one point I was really blinded by, oh, I need to make data-informed decisions. I need to put together all of these L3, L2, L1 dashboards, whatever. I think like that's something that is nice. It's something that you have to do, but at the same time, you need to understand how your product is being used. You need to see how it's being used. And the other thing is, I would like to learn earlier that the most important thing you can do is shipping. Like, you need to ship your stuff. If you're not shipping your stuff, if people are not using it, it doesn't matter. You cannot keep iterating forever. And the more time you keep stuff for yourself, then the less time to iterate on it you have. And the iteration process is one of the most important processes to make a product great.
Yeah, that will maybe become even more important in all this AI world, right? Because if you have this agent writing something and then someone is saying, oh, I assume there will not be too hard side effects. And then you also need to put it out, right? And you have the courage to say, and also the mindset of your product and the expectation of the people that you ship versions that will change. I think I have the impression, especially here in Germany, we still have the mental picture of, hey, we're building one thing, then we put it online and then it is done. Done. Nice. Next one. And not, okay, fast, small steps everywhere and iterate maybe on daily basis or even faster to find really the perfect spot. and the perfect user experience or whatever it is you want to optimize for.
Yeah, and I think it's also about how you iterate. Because again, saying that you are iterating, it doesn't give you, the freedom to just publish something that is broken. You still need to know where your product functionality is, where do you want to iterate, and what compromises are you taking. You still need to have those opinions, and you still need to have, your stance there. It's not about, just shipping for the sake of shipping neither. And I think that's even like more important with AI. Something that always resonates to me is that we should not be falling into doing random acts of AI. That was something that was like really strong to me at the beginning when all the AI boom was happening. Like maybe like, I don't know, in the times of GPT-3, GPT 3.5, that everyone was trying to add AI into everything. I think like right now we are finding more into, okay, where does it make sense? Where it doesn't make sense? Where do we want an agent? Where do we want a more generalized AI? Stuff like that. But it's been always to me like really crucial to find where the problem is and how do we tackle that problem and how do we solve that problem with the tools that we actually need for it.
Yeah, definitely. Goncha, I think it is a perfect segue to jump into our yay nay game. What do you think?
Yes, I agree.
Yay or nay?
Yay, 100% yay. Yeah, so this is a game that we play at the end of each episode. It's a yay nay game. I will say some statements, and you should say if you agree with them, yay. If you don't agree with them, nay. And then we can discuss a little bit about your answers.
All right, let's go. Will you also say yay or nay?
Yes, after you.
Okay.
First, we want to hear your answer. So, first one. The technical product manager should have veto power over any technical decision made by the engineering team.
Nay.
Why?
Because I trust them. Like, I'm working side to side with, I don't know, shout out to Gudmundur, who is one of the engineers I'm working a lot side to side on infrastructure. I will challenge stuff, but I will end up trusting on him because he's accountable for that part. As he trusts me when, for example, I am talking about more of the product side or the vision or what is hard requirement for the use cases that we are planning to work on something.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. In general, I'm very much not in favor of veto powers. So I think a lot of things can be just challenging each other and then coming to an agreement. How about
But isn't there a big difference between the engineer who's deep into the flow and developing something and you talking to the customers and looking over their shoulders and you see, okay, some example, everybody is clicking, not hitting the button, for example, for whatever, right? Does not find the Git reference or is trying to post a hash instead of. And then the engineer is saying, no, my solution is working really beautiful with that and it is much faster. And from the technical architectural standpoint, I think it's the better decision to do it like that. But you have the user perspective saying, but they are not using that one, for example.
Okay, let's differentiate. I think that's not a technical decision, that's a product decision.
I agree.
To me, a technical decision is, for example, on a cluster, how do we spread the state? Do we use a centralized algorithm or do we use like a gossip algorithm? Or how do we do that to have all of the instances in a cluster knowing what's going on globally? I will not challenge the way that the engineering team decides to do the scheduling, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I will trust them always that it's end up hitting the requirements. Like, for example, I don't know, that it has to be updated before 100 milliseconds. Like, customers need a response before 200 milliseconds. Do whatever you have to do to have that response. I will not interfere on what you decide to do under the hood.
Okay, good. So on the engineering level, where you have a concrete output, where you can say, okay, yes, this works or no, then okay, the engineers can decide. But if it is a user-facing decision where it is maybe an hypothesis and could be, could not be thing, then you would say still the product manager can veto and say, now you need to implement this and that, please.
Yeah.
I don't think that's at that point vetoing. That is a decision needs to be made by the product manager or by the UX designer, by the CX designer. And that's different than a technical decision for me as well.
Yeah, it's part of the iteration process on how we build the product.
Yeah. Alrighty. Then next one. Dark patterns are acceptable if they drive key business metrics.
Can we define what a dark pattern is?
Anything that we are not being fully transparent with the user about. So we are creating user accounts, as an example, without the knowledge of user. Something like this.
No. Big nay.
What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm also against it. That never pays back.
Good. I'm really happy to be in this crowd. I fully agree. And I unfortunately see that happening more and more in a lot of the products that we use. As an example, I don't know if there will be any legal consequences for us later on, but in Volt, I don't know if you both use Volt or not, but if you have the Volt Plus or don't have a Volt Plus, the price actually does not make a difference. I've made this experiment multiple times. I sent screenshots and emails to the Volt company that this is the issue. They haven't changed anything. Basically, you add all the items, and then in Volt Plus, you get some service fee gets added, which is exactly the same amount that the delivery fee would have been. So you're paying for the Plus subscription, but also at the end up, you're also paying for the delivery. But this time, it is disguised as service fee. So
interesting.
Yeah. That's a very obvious one. I don't know why they don't understand that this can be a legal issue, but hopefully not for us. And last but not least, OKRs kill creativity in product teams.
OKRs. I'm not a big fan of OKRs in general. So I'm not saying yay or nay. I'm going more for the broad answer of I like more initiatives and like mission, vision statements, and let's go there. I'm also in the school of planning is important, but I don't care about the plans, if that makes sense. Like we need to have the muscle of planning. We have to have the muscle of keep thinking about what's coming in the next 2, 3, 4 months. Seeing beyond 6 months is a bit of, okay, you're guessing. Let's not lie to ourselves unless you're in a really, really, really structured industry.
Yeah.
But then the plans, they can change. I'm not married to any plan that's coming from an H1 planning or whatever. And I like to guide those plannings more based on statements on how do we want the world to be rather than on what metric we want to hit or what number we want to get up.
Yeah, I fully agree.
This is also what I'm constantly repeating. The plan is nothing, but planning is everything. And as you said very nicely, having the muscle of planning, and then what you also described from this cultural perspective and from this shared values and this shared understanding of what we as a team are delivering and what we are celebrating, that should be the guidance and also the motivation to align in the company, and everybody wants to be here, right? And not having this overarching strict framework of someone saying, hey, but this is your number. And then, Scheuenklappen are started to not look left and right anymore.
Yeah, I remember there was a time that was like really talked online, I think like on LinkedIn a lot about, hey, should the PMs be owning, for example, how much should the PM be owning revenue and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And I was always afraid of that because if I have to maximize revenue, I will not maximize a good product, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that they don't go hand to hand. They end up maybe converging at some point, yes, but in the short and medium term, sometimes they don't really go hand by hand. I need to be thinking more. I want my PMs to be thinking more on the success of the company in 15, 20, 50 years. How do we position ourselves to be always relevant and have like the best product experience forever, rather than on maximizing, for example, on hitting a revenue target in 6 months. Sometimes you might have to do it when you're on early startups and stuff like that, because you are basically fighting for survival. The 6 months is your 20 years. But I think like you got the point across.
Yeah. You end up much too early in dark patterns again, and that will hit you hard later on, maybe in not finding the right talent to push your company to the next level.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds very much like a very good follow-up episode. But now I want to give you the final question. If you could give every product tech person one reminder for next week, what would it be?
Ship something. You need to be shipping something all the time. It doesn't matter if it's small, if it's big, whatever. Just keep shipping. Then go and check how people are using that thing that you ship. And if nobody is using it, well, you need to ship something else.
Okay.
Nice.
Quick follow-up question. What if my company is only releasing once a quarter?
Oh, we don't have enough time to talk about that.
Quit. Leave.
No, be the change that you want.
Maybe switch to Vercel and invest in CI/CD pipelines.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, ask some questions, want to learn more?
I'm on X as Cocirio. I can spell it is MZOZIRIO. My last name, I don't know. I know that it's probably not the most common last name. So yeah, but you will find it there. Or just put Mariano Vercel. It will come. I'm the only Mariano at Vercel.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mariano, for the episode and for sharing your thoughts with us. And really appreciate it.
And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for joining. I'm looking forward to all the deployments ahead of me to your Vercel service. And talk to you soon. Have a nice one. Bye.